Amazon Prime or YouTube, long before the video stores of Blockbuster Family Video, and so on. Before DVDs and VHS tapes, and even before those one-reel beta tapes. Anybody remember the beta tapes? Man, did we think we had it made with those, didn't we? We never again had to leave the house when those things came out. Long before all these things were movie theaters. And there they were when people went whenever they wanted to see the latest release. The movie theater was a gathering place for the community. Many were drawn together hoping to see the next Citizen Kane. The theater is where we find ourselves lost in another place. We stare at the big screen and believe that we are there, watching and participating in the lives of characters on the screen. Before the movie even starts, we are transported to another place simply by the smell. The popcorn. Nowhere else in the world smells like movie theater popcorn. You can't make it at your home. It brings us back to memories of previous movies that we've seen, time spent with friends and family. It was our childhood when we first saw Bambi. Our teenage years, you remember those? Our first date and the accidental reach around. Our first kiss. Our first scream when Alfred Hitchcock's imagination blew our mind and interfered with our reality. And that first time that men admitted to crying when Old Yeller ended. When we stood and applauded when Jimmy Chitwood hit that final shot in Hoosiers, and when we felt a sense of pride when our grandfather stood up as Patton led him to victory in World War II. There's nothing like it. There's nothing you can do at home that can duplicate this experience. Not on your computer, not on your mobile device, not even on your friend's big screen man cave television. There's just something when we sit there in anticipation. Suddenly the lights go down. The previews finish. And the opening credits are finally over. My friend, the show is about to begin. A truly happy person doesn't follow the advice of the wicked. It does not stand on the road with sinners. And it does not sit among the disrespectful. Instead, the happy person loves God's instructions. They live following God's path day and night, so says Psalms 1. It's about choices, you see. It's about standing at the forks in the road, and we're asked to make decisions all the time. And we have three distinct choices when it comes to faith, and oftentimes we are faced with such decisions. Have you ever been faced with a decision? Anybody? Do I wake up this morning or do I stay in bed? And decisions can get pretty tough, and it kind of feels a little something like this. ringtone all week has been playing the good, the bad, and the ugly theme song. Everywhere I walk in and somebody calls me, I feel like Clint Eastwood. Do I pick the paper towel or the double-ply paper towel? Stand there and look. This third movie is a trilogy. Did you know that? The Dollars trilogy is what it's called. It was preceded by A Fistful of Dollars and A Few More Dollars. It was released in 1966, and it captured the nation's attention with its Western genre. It launched Clint Eastwood into stardom. Every day we face similar decisions in our life. Now, maybe it's not a decision on who has the fastest gun in the West, but there are decisions about who to follow and which direction to go. And Psalms 1 makes it clear that decisions will lead to the good things in life, the bad things in life, or the ugliest situations. Let's first talk about the bad and the ugly. Psalms 1 clearly spells out what four choices are. Everyone in this room, as we raised our hands, has made a poor life decision. We have followed advice that may help us to remain popular, or to continue to fit in with a group of certain people. We have made choices that have gotten us into trouble, or even made choices that has taken us to the brink of ugliness. It seems to consume the world. Scripture tells us that when we follow the advice of the wicked, we move away from the good. When we stand on the road with sinners and we follow not the godly pursuit of grace, but follow the sinful road, we are drawn to what makes us unhappy. And we get lost in misery and hopelessness. Think about that for just a second. When have you followed poor advice? Or made a choice based on the status quo rather than your pursuit of godliness? What was the result of those decisions? Rob was a normal guy. He had an average life. He worked a 10-hour night shift every day. He had 3 kids and a wife who seemed to wrap her own life around what her kids were doing, much more so than her relationship with Rob. Home life for Rob was filled with goodbyes as Rob came home and the kids ran out of the house. And soon Rob felt alone. The empty house was a reminder that he was beginning to feel empty in his own soul. Unable to sleep, Rob began to wonder if he could continue this road of unhappiness much longer. Long hours to support a family he rarely saw. Missing the early years with his wife before they had kids. And now the kids seem to want to do activities more than spend time with Dad. Well, Rob began to listen to the advice of several co-workers who were in similar situations, working the night shift, and soon Rob was making decisions that took him away from family. The empty house was filled with drowned sorrows and empty companionship. Rob went from a bad situation to an ugly situation in the course of just a few months. His choices were not only bad, but they were now wicked, following a sinful path. He no longer had a relationship with his wife and kids at the end of those months. Soon he was kicked out of the house by his father-in-law, and Rob lived out of his car for a few weeks. This is not that unfamiliar of a story. It happens quite often, even in our own community and certainly across our nation. You see, when we make one poor choice, it begins to snowball to other choices. It is the path of wickedness that is talked about. And oftentimes, when we continue to neglect understanding goodness, we end up in places of wickedness that destroy our lives. And yet, even then, Jesus is there. It is the choice we make to look at ourselves and remember that no matter what the choices we have made, that God still looks at us and says, you are worthwhile. That no matter what low point that we might be living in, we can still make the choice to follow Jesus Christ. Verse 3 in Psalms 1 tells us that when we make the choice to follow Jesus Christ, that we are like a tree replanted by a stream of water. Think about it. We are like a tree replanted by a stream of water. Have you ever just walked along? Go outside and playing golf yesterday, just looking at the wonderful, wonderful beauty of what it is we are like when we say yes to Jesus. And then it says it bears fruit at just the right time. How many of you want to bear fruit at just the right time? You're tired of missing the mark. It says our leaves will not fade. And now get this. Whatever we do will succeed. Whatever we do will succeed. Following Jesus is making a good choice. Following Jesus means that we live our lives as Jesus lived. And as we learned about on Tuesday with our Bible study, that Jesus, who made right decisions all the time, followed the path of goodness, led a life of true and complete happiness. True and complete happiness. True and complete happiness. Let me say it over here. True and complete happiness. When you live as Jesus lived. It can't get much easier than that. Don't we all want to feel truly happy? We share about Rob and his experience of happiness. He began talking to his wife again, and he began attending a gathering called Celebrate Recovery. He accepted the grace offered to him through Jesus Christ and made it his mission to follow God and put his family back together. It was a long road for Rob, one that required plenty of patience and healing. Rob and his wife are now 10 years past that one awful year. They both agreed to put God first in their lives and their family second. My friends, even the ugliest of situations, as Rob would tell you, can be transformed if you believe in grace. Happiness is not a fictional feeling. It's not a script in a movie. It can be reality. It is your life and your choice. You can stand there and choose the bad that leads to ugly. You can do that, and many of us have before. In fact, it's available just about everywhere we walk or go. We can get into trouble. You and I have both chosen bad things in our life before, and yes, maybe it was fun for just a moment, but never did the wicked bring true joy. It's about you choosing to follow Jesus, to give your life over to Jesus. It's about praying daily. It's about loving others. It's about speaking the truth that we find in the gospel, sharing God's message of grace with others, and realizing that it is grace found in Jesus that leads us from the bad and the ugly to the path of goodness. See, that's the path God has called us to. We know that movies, as great as they can make us feel and as emotional as they can be, are just movies. Now, my in-laws think Star Wars is bigger than just a movie, but it's just a movie. It's just a movie. Now, Rudy. Real life. Movies are scriptured pictures by talented people. They take us away from our world for just a few moments, and that is okay. Yet unlike movies, our lives are very real. And as much as we want to try to strip them, it's impossible. We are often faced with choices each day to follow Jesus or to continue down the path of the bad and the ugly. It's really that simple. No matter what it is that you choose, or no matter where it is that you've been, or maybe you feel like you're on the path of the bad and the ugly even right now. Jesus says by His grace, there is goodness. There is a path of goodness. If you haven't already, I invite you to ask Jesus to come, to lead you down that path of goodness, and find true joy, and find true happiness. Let's stand and sing.